lot bigger than this.
I hope you know that.
Another deer, big buck deer, my dad. Hold it home.
Yeah. Well, you run this about I appreciate it, brother. Your cub, I love you. Well, this is what I've been looking for. Ball fights.
All right, it is time for Trophy Tales episode 4. This week, I got a buddy of mine, known him for a long time. He actually has a huge YouTube channel that is just taken off. I'm going to link that channel called Fall Line Ridge in the description. And anyway, a couple years ago, he killed a really good buck. He had pictures of this deer more than 1 year, and he actually... Basically, on his channel, you can watch and see him plant this food plot, see the seed and all that he used, and then he also winds up killing the buck in that food plot. It's a great story. It's an exciting story, and look forward to you watching it.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. My name is Wes. I have a channel on YouTube called Fall Line Ridge where we do homesteading and woodworking and beekeeping and gardening and that kind of stuff. And I'm standing here on the land where I got a very, very large deer here a couple of years ago. And Clay has asked me to share the story of that deer. So I'm standing here in the field where I shot the deer, just a few feet actually from where the deer dropped. And it was a November evening in 2020. And I had a friend who was hunting on this place as well, and he was back in the woods a little ways, and I was out here in the field, and it was getting dark. And it was kind of getting to the point where it was dark, and I should have made a judgment call. Do I really need to stay here, or do I need to go? Because it's getting pretty dim out here. But I decided to stay for just a few more minutes. And as it was getting darker and darker, my friend texted me and he said, "Hey, can I come out? I'm done. It's dark down in here, and I'm going to get down. Can I come out?" And I said, "Sure, you can come out. There's no deer out here. You're fine." 2 or 3 minutes after I sent that, and before he had come out onto the field, a group of deer came out. It was a very, very large buck, and possibly more than one buck, I'm not sure, and a group of does as well. And they came out right over here to my right, probably about 50 yards from the stand, so it wasn't a particularly long shot. So I texted my friend, and thankfully he hadn't come out onto the field yet, but I texted him and I said, "Hey, stop." And I sent another text and said, "I've got deer out here, just give me a second." So I checked out this one buck, and I could tell that he was an absolute bruiser. As I said, it was getting pretty dim. I couldn't count all the points on his head, but it was obvious that it was a very large-bodied deer, very mature buck, and I decided to shoot the deer. So I shot him, and he just dropped like a sack of potatoes. And my friend came out. I guess I texted him. It's been a while, but I guess I texted him, and he came out, and we went up to the deer. And I'll tell you more detail about that in just a minute. But we got the deer loaded up, got him to the processor, and unfortunately I don't have the head back just yet to show you. I do have some pictures Clay will probably be able to share with you. But the story of shooting this deer was really not that spectacular. What was really spectacular, what was more significant, is the things that I learned from the experience. So it was a really satisfying experience because 2020 was really the first year that we began managing this property for deer, and it was really nice to have a good harvest the very first year that you start managing your property for deer, because you know, deer management on properties is a long-term goal, right? You're not really going to see great results until 3, 4, 5 years later down the road. But this particular year we were able to see some really good results, some really good payback in the very first year, which was great. Another thing that was so special about it is that it was the largest deer I'd ever ever shot, the most mature deer I had ever shot. The rack, I do have some pictures I should be able to share with you, but the rack had some non-typical characteristics to it, not like the huge gnarled antlers that you see on a lot of very non-typical deer, but there were a few non-typical characteristics on the deer which made it pretty special as well. Another great thing about it was the learning experience that I got from it. So I told you that when I shot the deer, it dropped like a sack of potatoes, and it really did. But when we walked up to the deer, it was still alive, and it was very disoriented, but it was still trying to get up and get out of here. So I had to shoot the deer again. And the reason that that happened was because I did a neck shot on the deer, and it's been my practice for years to do neck shots, and they have always worked extremely well. But this time I just didn't quite hit in the spot that I should have hit on the deer's neck, and it ended up suffering for a little while, and it ended up being a fairly non-sportsmanlike situation. It was not a humane shot. So I learned that it's probably a whole lot better just to go for the main vitals, the heart and the lungs, instead of trying to do the trick shot on the neck. But it was a great learning experience. It was very satisfying as far as being able to harvest a deer the very first year that we started managing the property for deer. And I guess that's it, really. I don't guess it's a super special story about a deer, even though it was the nicest deer I'd ever shot. But I really think what I learned from it is the most significant thing. I'll be able to go forward now and shoot deer in a much more humane way. I've been hunting deer all my life, and I started doing the neck shots on advice from somebody who was a fairly prolific hunter. And I guess maybe if you're a better shot, it works out pretty good. But I think for the most part, for the average hunter, the safest and the most humane thing to do is just go for the shoulder. So that's the story of my deer. I hope that y'all enjoyed it, and thank y'all for watching this video. And thank you, Clay, for asking me to do this.